What's going on, my homie fam dogs, home slash fam slash whatever I'm gonna call you guys, and today we're here with my new blue tree Squirrel Girl build that can handle Nightmare 100 pretty easily. Now, what am I gonna call it? I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what I'm gonna title this video. Is it gonna be Nut Rocket Squirrel Girl, which sounds crazy, or is it gonna be Stunning Nut Squirrel Girl? I don't know. You guys will though. When I get this out, I'll know eventually, but I have no idea what I'm gonna call this video. But yeah, as you may have heard from, just a few seconds ago, this is a blue tree Squirrel Girl build. Yeah, I just wanted to be different. In my opinion, I will say I personally enjoyed the gameplay loop of this Squirrel Girl just a little bit more, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because it switches up Squirrel Girl's gameplay loop from just, kind of shooting like normal Squirrel Girl and just like intertwining her abilities, and I don't know. I think it's pretty fun. That's just me. So that's a pro. A big con is I think it's probably just objectively slower clear times than the other Squirrel Girl build, my Gatling Nut one. It is definitely not as strong as that one, but I will say this one could probably be a really great support if necessary because of what we're going to explain. It does have vulnerability built in. But anyways, enough of the yap. This video shouldn't be as long as the last one because I'm not going to explain everything as in depth as I did the last one. So if you want me to, I can in the future, but we're going to skim through some things here that we already know that you should go for. Let's get right into it. Also, I want to thank you guys for the support on the last one. Anyways, enough of that. I want to start off with the skill tree here. So per normal, we're going to go 5 out of 5 into our damage, and then 1 out of 5 and mostly everything else. So 5 out of 5 into total damage, 5 out of 5 into output. We're going to pick up our abilities 5 out of 5 into critical damage. Your typical general blue tree. Now, we're not actually going to pick up these first two traits on either side. One is not even for this. We're not going to be using our primary like at all, actually, but we are going to pick up Jumbo Acorn. Why? Because we are going to be spamming our Squirrel Blockade, and this explodes on hit, imprisons enemy, and applies 60% vulnerability. So we already have 60% vulnerability right there from that ability. This is very important. And then we're actually going to get, I have 1 out of 3 into this. Now that's because of my gear. As you can see, my gear is adding on plus 52. This increases your imprisonment time. It also spawns squirrel friends. Now squirrel friends are important because squirrel friends can stack up to 100 times. Now I'm not sure, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not sure if the stacks go up to 100 normally or not. I assume they did because of how this reads, but if this increases the stack limit to 100, then maybe investing 1 point into this is worth it. I'm not sure. We do have 1 point into here. You basically throw 2 of your blockades out, you'll hit the max stacks. It's really more damage over time. Now, we're not going to pick up Rapid Fire Acorn, no primary. We are going to pick up Rodent Plague though. Why? Because this applies slow and more vulnerability. I think base is like 40-ish percent, 45-ish percent. Yeah, it's 45%. But with my gear that I have, that I'll explain later on, this is just going to apply more vulnerability, which equals more damage. But as you might be seeing in the gameplay in the background, that damage does not equate to, I explained this last time, does not equate to what you see on the board. Technically, Gatling Nut will have higher damage numbers shown, but this one does apply vulnerability, and vulnerability does not count towards your damage stat. I went with a ability cooldown here for this little mid-tier pickup right here, I guess is what I'll call it. Like I said, we don't even use our primaries, so there's no reason to have primary attack speed. This is the best thing here, the ability cooldown, even though our abilities are up constantly regardless. We're actually only going to pick up 3 out of 5 into critical hit rate here, and I'll explain that a little bit later. Now, I put 1 into natural symbiosis. Why? Because I don't like Mammal Bond. Mammal Bond is our lifeline. Mammal Bond is kind of our survivability. We like drop health packs or whatnot. I think. I'm not sure if that's, I'm gonna have to look into that. I'll correct myself if I find out later on, but Mammal Bond is how we survive, and it allows us to, use our jump twice if necessary to get out of sticky situations, stuff like that. And this just helps with, upkeeping our Squirrel Blockade without even needing to worry about this. Now, yes, I did pick up offense and defense. Now, if you want to take this point out and throw it into the first trait that I talked about in the blue tree, you can. The reason I picked it up, why not? I know I said it didn't work in the last video, and honestly, I should take it out and put it somewhere else. Truth be told, I was just messing around. I was really trying to get this to work because it took a little bit of a lot of tweaking to get this build to work consistently, at least. And for whatever reason, I found a little bit more success in that. I really don't know how this works. I'm not gonna lie, but I'm pretty sure it still doesn't work. More 1 out of 5 over here if you want me to explain that. Squirrel missile. Now this is huge. I maxed this out because our squirrel missile scales with the squirrel friend stacks. So basically we're maxing out. So it's at least 100. This is gonna do plus with my gear. I think default it's like what, 60 something. I don't know, 67. It's gonna be like around 60 something percent or 70%. Something like that. So with our squirrel friend stacks in my gear, we're stacking 700% per stack, and I think it's 4 to 5 lock-ons. So that's like 28 to 3,500% more. That's big numbers right there. That's primary, that's all like big bursts of damage. Everything else is kind of like big damage over time. These burst down enemies, this is how you clear waves. I caught 1 out of 3 into here because we are using squirrel blockade. Why not? It does drop burst acorns. Now I could take this out. I'm not sure how much the acorn rain does. It's kind of hard to tell with everything going in, so please forgive me if, you know, I sound like I don't know what I'm doing, but at the same time, it's hard to test individual things like this in a big horde of enemies. I'm not gonna lie, but I took it because we are using squirrel blockade. Might as well take this point to, you know, give it a little bit more oomph, if you get what I'm saying. I took 1 out of 3 into here. You could go more into Friends of Nature. This is during Mammal Bond, you dispatch mini squirrels to nearby enemies. However, seconds that is. That's 0.48. It can go lower. I think it goes to a minimum of like 0.05, 0.03. This is also partially the reason why we pick up natural symbiosis earlier in the tree to upkeep this. And if you may notice, when I do use Mammal Bond, I try not to use my blockade because it does shorten the time, but it's to upkeep this because the more squirrel friend stacks this applies in a nearby area, the more damage you're going to be doing. And that's why I spam my rockets, because this is already applying the stack, so I don't really need my blockade. You guys got that? I feel like I'm speaking pretty fast. I don't know. I'm just trying to get through this a little bit quicker, you know, a little bit more speed than usual. We go with ability extra damage bonus. Like I said, we don't even use our primary attack. No reason to pick that up. I went with the reason I grabbed Cycle of Nature. This one is weird. Not as weird as, you know, me picking up some other things earlier on, because it's like, you can argue those. This one is actually just weird. It says every 20,000 damage dealt, not specifically burst acorn, but damage dealt, reduces Mammal Bond cooldown by 0.5 seconds to a minimum of 3 seconds. This does work with the squirrel blockade and the rocket. I have found that occasionally it kind of doesn't want to, and I don't know what that's. I'm not sure if it works with squirrel friends. I think it only works with the initial burst of the rocket or the blockade. I'm not sure if the squirrel friends actually work with this, because sometimes I'll see it on like a normal cooldown when there's like a few enemies left, and I'll throw like something at somebody and I'm like watching them get attacked by squirrel friends and the cooldown's not going down. It's weird. One into this, every 50,000 damage dealt by squirrel friends reduces cooldown of blockade and missile by 0.3 and 5 respectively. That's an obvious pickup. We want those constantly, so basically you can spam your blockade and missiles. It rarely goes on cooldown. I went 5 out of 5 into precision rate. I guess this is a good point. Let's take a look at our damage breakdown over here on the left hand side. As you can see, I have a lot of total damage. We'll talk about that later, but I actually went for a precision damage build. Why? Because I felt like this is my more quicker clearing. Weirdly enough, my gear leans more into precision. I feel like it clears a little bit quicker than when I try to go for critical. I prefer critical usually for most of my builds, but I think it makes sense to go precision for this build. Why? Because you have a bunch of stacks of squirrel friends on every enemy. The chances you're going to proc a precision with like hundreds of stacks of damage over time happening at the same time is a lot more common than, say, trying to proc precision using like your normal primary fire, right? It happens way more often is basically what I'm saying. So why not lean into that? Now if your gear leans more towards critical damage, of course, play into what your gear does. Gear is very important, maybe too important. I don't know, I might talk about that in a later video, but that's besides the point. We're gonna go 1 out of 3 into this. Why? Truth be told, you could take this out, but I have found that this trait does help me out. Sometimes I may mess up my cooldown, like rotation, I guess, and somehow, some way, both the rocket and the blockade will go on cooldown at the same time. And I'm like, well, okay. If you have your ult, and it does happen decently during boss fights because you might miss a blockade because they're moving all over the place, this will apply stacks of Squirrel Friends, and these stacks will help you get your cooldowns back. I have this point here. It does seem kind of a waste, but trust me, it gets you out of some sticky spots sometimes. If you find your cooldowns off, but you have your ult, you throw your ult out, you get those cooldowns back, you're back in action. It's more of a safety net, is what I'm trying to say. Struggled getting out the rest of those words there, but that's besides the point. Now, we went 5 out of 5 in precision damage. Like I said, this is more of a precision damage build simply because my gear leans into it, as well as it just happens more often. So I went more hard into precision damage here than I usually do. Honestly, I should take this point out of Circle of Life, but at the same time, I have nothing else to really put it in, really. I guess you could argue I could put it into something critical damage related, but I actually have max critical damage in the tree. You could argue, hey, why not put it into your burst acorn up here? But I don't use my primary fire. I guess a potential argument is, hey, you put it in here. That way you don't have to rely on your ult to get your stacks back in those sticky situations. You just shoot the enemy once. That's a good argument. And maybe I might make that change. And 1000 Squirrel Army, finally, casting the ultimate ability removes the ultimate energy lock. Maximum numbers of simultaneous tsunamis on the field +3. I've never gotten more than 1 on the field at a time, to be honest with you. But like I said, this is once again one of those points where it's like, if I took this out, I'm not entirely sure where else I would put it. I guess you could put more points into something, one of these other traits, so that's up to your discretion. But this is definitely something that you're supposed to pair with the ultimate charge here. I just don't find it. I think I had this at 3 at once upon a time. Even with it up to like 90% charge, I didn't find it fast enough to where like I could get more than 1 out on the field. This does help because it does get your ult back a lot quicker. Trust me, it does. More safety nets. Not a bad thing. Not a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad point. You can make a change wherever you please. And of course, for my capstone, I went for precision damage instead of critical damage because I've explained it a couple of times already. And yeah, we're gonna go ahead and go on to our gear. So this is the banner I'm running. We got total damage. We have a trait that I'm not even using. It's for burst acorn. We have critical damage, precision rate, and close range enemies. Funnily enough, I actually do like the close range because, as you may have seen, the close range enemies actually happens relatively often in this build, that you kind of do get swarmed. So like, and the bosses do literally like bum rush you. So like, close range does actually happen relatively often, and close range does result in a lot more damage. But I really have this equipped, I'm not going to lie, more so for that total damage bonus. Now, another banner I was using, sorry about that, not this one, this one. This also has the bonus damage against bosses. As you can see, our output boost is a little higher at the cost of our damage boost being a little bit lower. This one is ever so slightly, it is slower. It's slower at general mobbing, but I've had some, I think it was this one, I've had some crazy numbers. I have a game clip that I guess I can show right now. It might be a combination of the bosses being in their weakness phase, or me being close, or like, I don't know, or maybe it's the extra precision damage, but you can hit for some crazy numbers sometimes with this one. But for general mobbing, I like the one on the right more than the one on the left. It does give me better clear times. That's up to you. For armor, simply just pick your best armor. For me, like I said, this is the exact same armor I had on my Gatling Nut Squirrel Girl. I have a couple other ones there, but I don't like them as much. I personally prefer survivability and health, as well as something healing rune related. For our amulet, we got this one, which is beautiful to see. This is helping us get our squirrel missile damage scaling way high. It also gives us precision damage, total damage bonus. This is really supposed to just help you get more damage. Obviously, that squirrel missile damage is quite important though for this build. Lastly, for our exclusive, we have something, like I said, you know, the normal stuff that you want to pay attention for: your output, your precision damage, and then you look for traits in maybe even precision or critical rate, depending on what you're going for. Now, one thing I will say, I love this exclusive specifically. Why? Because the vulnerability applied is plus 114%, as well as the blockade hitting for more than plus 52. This vulnerability, I feel it a lot. This feels really important. I've tried using this one. This one's a lot slower. Even though our missile damage goes out of the roof, if I click it here, our missile damage goes up to plus 1,400 per stack. It does hit hard, trust me. This one works just as much as the one on the left, but the one on the left is actually a decent bit better. This one works, but this one is better. And I think it's because of that vulnerability. Vulnerability is very important here. Now, for enhancements, I think this is what you want to look for. I think these are the perfect 3 enhancements that you want to look for, because you're going to get the more friends on the blockade. You're going to get more dispatch, like mini squirrels dispatch during mammal bond, and you're getting the vulnerability. I really think these are the perfect 3 enhancements you want to look for on the exclusives. Overall, that's going to wrap it up. Maybe in the goal of trying to be a little bit more concise with this, I might have skipped over a few things that's more important. I don't know. That's basically gonna do it for our I still don't know if this is gonna be called Nut Rocket. Nut Rocket is just a crazy name. Is that not crazy? I don't know. I kind of want to name it Nut Rocket. Will YouTube allow me to name? That sounds just ridiculous, but I might just go for it. Strong builds are also nice to have, obviously, but fun builds or off meta builds is what I love personally about game modes like these. And so I also just wish they were kind of strong as well, but you get what I'm saying. But anyways, long outro per usual. What can I say? I like yapping. But anyways, guys, that's gonna do it for today's video. Thank you once again for all the support on the last video. I truly appreciate it. I mean, it means a lot. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.